everybody.
Hey, we're back. Another week. I want to say welcome everyone who is watching right now. We're so glad that you have joined us this Friday night at 6 p.m. We gather here every week, and you have a chair at the table to come and have a conversation with us and what we have come to know as End Time Talks. And we are so glad that you're joining us at this 6 o'clock hour. Take a moment right now if you haven't done so already, and just hit the share button and let everyone know that we're coming on live. And we're gonna have a really interesting conversation today in light of some interesting things happening in our world and seeing how they lined up to the scriptures, if at all. But before we do that, let me give Gary an opportunity to say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here again.
Yes.
We're really growing fond of these times that we can come together. And if any good thing came out of COVID, we got better at this.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, so we can at least say that.
Yeah. So for better or for worse, we get to come here online and share with all of you. And we're, it's actually a really productive and really great opportunity to be able to connect with people who perhaps couldn't even be able to get here physically. One of the nice things about social media and using this kind of platform just kind of extends your borders and outreach. But what we do here every week is we talk about different conversations or have different conversations about different topics related to the end times. And we are on the horizon, if you will, a week away from our 12th anniversary on March 4th. And we're really excited about that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. We're going to leave that for later on in the show. But for today, Gary, let's talk about what's going on in our world today.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a
times.
little bit. So everyone knows Russia began their offensive against Ukraine, and the horror of that war brings, regardless. It's just interesting how it's actually being framed, and because we were in COVID and weren't really paying attention to geopolitical issues, this is something that's been going on it's been going on for a long time, but like around 17, 18 was when there were the threats that were beginning to form with Putin against Zelensky, and then he kind of just made good on the threats finally, for whatever reason, the timing, which are politically speculative.
Right.
So everyone has an opinion on, it's because of this. Nobody knows the timing of it for sure, and opinions are opinions. But there's a deeper thing going on here, Bernie, than just a land grab. I think it is a land grab because this is what nations do, especially nations that are surrounded by other nations. They don't have natural borders like we have with the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Right.
And a friendly neighbor in Canada and there's southern South America, and so we're really spoiled with having that. In Europe, in the Middle East, that's not the case. So there's these constant conflicts and border issues. This goes back to like the collapse of the Soviet Union and how everything was split up and the independent nations, and then we're trying to figure out, from what I can what I'm reading in all the articles, like is Putin just a hardcore communist trying to resurrect the Soviet Union? Or is he actually the opposite? Is he more of a has more of like Stalin in his mind, or a Marxist mentality where he's just trying to make his mark, in the geopolitical history, get his name and his image up with those other leaders. So you don't know what's in the heart of men, though Jesus said he knows exactly what's in the heart of men. But So there's that whole thing that's going on that we're looking at. But something that I've noticed that I haven't come up on a lot of articles, a couple, is that there is the essence of a spiritual war going on also. When I say spiritual war, we know war in the heavenlies, but I'm talking about religious wars. That you don't think of that happening in Christian nations. It's like everyone's just Christian and we all get along. But there's these battles between church denominations. Not like we have in America where we just yell at each other on social media, but where it's some serious arguments that go on. And Putin, whether it's sincere or not, is using this for his own justification in saying, what he's really trying to do, I read this one article, what he's really trying to do is rescue the Russians that are in Ukraine. And they're actually calling out to Russia to rescue them because Ukraine is going secular. And the Western culture influence and democracy is bringing in a secularistic lifestyle and view upon the nation of Ukraine that Putin is actually responding to the Russian Orthodox Church members in Ukraine and liberating them.
Almost
This is the framework in
sounds
Russia.
pious. He
Isn't that-
sounds so pious.
Yeah,
And so,
it really
Wow,
is.
how interesting.
And I've read, now that was an opinion piece, but then I was reading some of the news and the way he has made speeches based on that, at least that justification. So that's why he's not calling it a war. He's calling it a rescue mission. He's got like ideas of a helpless people that are being beat up in the midst of the Ukrainian democracy, Western democracy influence, and neo-Nazism imported from the West. And he's even called, what's his name, Zelensky, a Nazi.
wow.
He's called him a Nazi.
I wasn't aware of that.
And
Wow.
Zelensky's response was, I'm Jewish.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's Jewish with 3 of his family members
Oh, no.
died in the Holocaust. And he goes, I'm not a Nazi. There's just, it goes against everything that
course.
I am, So there's a lot of that stuff that's going on that's really weighing into that surrounding area. Now, what that means as far as we're concerned, I'm talking geopolitical now, and I'm not an expert at all, but geopolitically, America's released the sanctions in alignment with a whole bunch of other nations. Germany, France, and a couple of others. And the sanctions are supposedly heavy sanctions that's supposed to cripple the economy. I don't think so. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. I think President Biden has said, it's a long-term answer, maybe, but the threat of it didn't stop Putin from
Right.
going in. And if I remember right, we did sanctions back when he tried this. Maybe 10 years ago with
The Crimea.
Crimea, and it didn't stop him. So, I don't think that's the answer. However, it may be the only answer that we have, because the other option
War.
is go to war.
World
okay,
war.
so if we go to war against Russia, then NATO has to get engaged. NATO is the help me North Atlantic
Treaty
North Atlantic
Organization.
Treaty, and which is about 30 or so countries that are joining it, which is an attack on one is an attack on all, and they have a force and an armed force of cumulative armies and so forth. Okay, so if America goes in to help Ukraine, that pulls the trigger on NATO. Okay, so now we have 30 nations
Wow.
coming against Russia, who then will probably get an ally with China.
And Japan.
Right? In Japan. All right, what do we have? World War III. Okay, so I get Biden is in a bind because he can't be seen as being the trigger man for World War III. Okay. However, if Putin pushes past the Ukraine and into Poland, Poland is a NATO member. So it may be inevitable
Wow.
that if they go into Poland, then it triggers United Nation NATO war. It triggers the NATO war. And that's, again, we're in the same scenario. So geopolitically, this is critical. It's not something like poor Ukraine. It's It is. It's awful, but it's critical. It's a hinge pin on where this thing could fall. So, as much as I might disagree a lot with President Biden on different issues, I really see him up against the wall with this one. This is a tough one to navigate, and I'm sure he's got 30 other nations that he has to consider in making those decisions. All right, so this is tough. But that's what we're in.
That's so interesting. And I don't really know a lot about some of these things that you're describing, so I really appreciate that you've done the homework
Yeah.
of kind of looking into all of this. But
And the reason why I'm not like a what do you call it, amateur geopoliticist. I want to find the end time message in all of this. I'm seeking out in all that's going geopolitically. I'm taking that and I'm looking at what the scriptures are saying and doing,
Right.
and where this thing, what scenarios can come out of it. So that's kind of where a lot of my interest is. It lies in, all right, is this something we need to pay attention to directly in end time prophecy? Is it, and it is, but is it only the Matthew 24 wars and rumors of wars part of the birth pangs? Definitely is, but is it only that?
Right.
And we don't know the degree of intensity that Matthew 24 and Luke 7 is actually speaking about. We don't really know the Luke 21 is actually speaking about, but it definitely is that. So that's kind of what my interest is. My interest is in there.
you've always told us, pay attention to Turkey and that part of the world, and this is just kind of north of that region. But nevertheless, I mean, alongside all of the geopolitical commentaries that are circulating, in our Christian circles, right? All of our social media, and we're also starting to see a similar conversation happening insofar as much as you just described, people trying to understand, if at all, draw connections between end time prophecies and what is happening in our day to day.
Right.
And by your statement, there may be some loose connections, but I think that one of the things that came to mind right away for me, thinking about some old ideas that I had about the end times, specifically concerning the prophecies related to the kingdom of the north, and Gog and Magog, and associating that with Russia. Mm-hmm. And people are beginning to say, obviously, this is it. It's happening. Everything is beginning to take shape. This is this is the kingdom of the north making its way down south.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, and how does that connect?
Well, okay, so we have to keep in mind that the Bible is and prophetic scriptures Israel-centric.
Correct.
Okay.
That's good.
It's not even church-centric. Remember, the church is part of the Commonwealth of Israel. Mm-hmm. It's grafted in. So even though Israel and the church are separate entities and have different mission statements that overlap, let's say it that way, it's still all about Israel. It's still the Israel centricity of the end time scriptures.
And just to be clear, when you say Israel-centric, it's not just speaking about the people of Israel, but the geographical land of Israel.
Correct.
So it's the scriptures, when it talks about that world, it's speaking about the world of Israel and the nations that surround it.
Correct.
So all of us who are on the other side of the pond are not necessarily directly being spoken of or addressed, although we may have some indirect influence and have indirect impacts from it.
Yes.
It's really speaking about that 1040 window, if you will, maybe,
Yeah.
where Israel is a part of it.
Yeah, and the Bible's really clear on the specifics of that region. Okay. Names are named. God names names.
That's important, yeah.
And they're all in that region.
That's good.
okay. So where does America come in? Anywhere it says Gentile or the world. That's it. We're the Gentiles and we're the world. That's where we come in. Other than that, they're named, and God's specific about the name. He's not being mysterious. So I've the Gog and Magog being Russia is a very old interpretation of that emphasis, and it's very confusing. Like I when I learned of that years and years and years ago, it was just accepted. Gog,
Exactly.
Magog, I don't know. It sounds right. And north, okay, up there. That's
up there.
north, okay. So we'll all accept it. But I never thought of the true revealing in Ezekiel 38:39 that Gog of Magog is actually a place in Turkey. It's an actual city, a region, whatever it was, a tribe in Turkey that was north of Israel. So it's an actual place. So some of the interpreters making Gog and Magog Russia it started in Turkey, but then that group moved and settled in the land of Rosh, which is Russia, which it isn't. Okay, and Russia today are if you do DNA of pure Russian people, it would be Turkish, or it would come from this region. I mean, it's a real
That's really interesting.
it's a real puzzle montage of trying to figure out who the real Gog of Magog is, when the Bible doesn't tell us to do that at all. Gog and Magog is in Turkey, and God knew when he said it that this would be interpreted in the future as the Antichrist, where the Antichrist comes from. So he was so wise to name the land. So no matter what it's called, we'll always know the land, right? So though there is no Gog and Magog today, it's still there as far as God is concerned in the region of Turkey.
Got it.
Okay, so Gog and Magog is not Russia. It just doesn't line up. You can force it to line up, but it's really convoluted.
Yeah.
To try to put that all together and all of those missing pieces to then land when the kid who just reads it once goes, there it is on the map. You could just get a Bible atlas today, look at the ancient map and go, there it is. It's listed.
It's a real
on
actual place.
on the map in Turkey.
Wow.
Right, so it's very easy to just point at it, and it is north, so it is north of Israel.
Right.
And so some people go, yeah, but Ezekiel 38 says it's the far region, or the far extension, I forgot the word, of the north. It's the far reaches of the north, which still would be Turkey. It still would be Turkey, because as far as Israel is concerned, north of Israel was like Syria. Syria was north. Anything beyond Syria was the far north.
Look at that.
The further north. And they even had a mountain, and it's still there, of course, at the border of Syria and Turkey. That's called the North Mountain. It's an ancient name. So it was a marker, a geographical marker that said that's north. Anything beyond the North Mountain is the far north. All right, so it lines up perfectly when you just apply a proper hermeneutic and not try to stick things in to shift it all the way out into Europe.
Right.
When it's, so to make Russia who they are and bring all the European nations into it, it's no longer Israel-centric. It's America-centric.
Right.
Which is what Americans always try to do. We're trying to make it all about us when it's really all about God and his chosen people and his purposes for Israel. So that's kind of that's what's going on. So when I've seen some prominent leaders in our nation, religious leaders that are just kind of pushing that Gog and Magog, and I hear it, and I just go, you're just being. I don't mean this insulting, because I respect them and I like their teaching, but you're being irresponsible by not considering, by just towing a line when it's all you got to do is read it. It's not mysterious. I challenge you, read Ezekiel 38 and 39 tonight. Just go through it. When you see it's talking about Gog and Magog, see the nations that are joining with Gog and Magog. They're all Middle East nations that join with them. And they're talking about the far north. Take in consideration what I've said. Get a Bible atlas, look at it, and see if you come to the conclusion that I'm coming to, or if you're going to go, no, that doesn't fit. It has to be Russia. And then I challenge you, come up with the prophetic line that brings you to Russia.
Yeah.
You're going to have a hard time.
If I could just kind of maybe parentheses your statement, which is saying I think that there's so much that there's so much about the conversations of the end times that is just that, where we're just kind of regurgitating information that we've heard because we're taking it for granted that the research has been done, and that is just the undeniable, irrefutable conclusion to it. So Gog and Magog, for example, being Russia, is one that I just kind of accepted, but there was no real scholarly explanation for it. It was just like, oh, it just so happens to be Russia, and you just take it at face value.
And
this
it's
coming
the bear
books.
and the flag.
Yeah,
and
there's all these connections that are made,
but they're
haphazardly.
very haphazard connections.
Definitely.
If you read it,
Definitely.
and the whole Russia's the bad guy.
Yeah,
It's
you
been
wonder
the
how
bad
much.
guy.
You wonder how much that villainization is coming from our own political perspective in America.
How long
right?
have they been a
The
villain?
Cold War
right?
stuff.
Probably since the what?
Always the bad guys. Always
40s,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the 50s. So it's been they've had a long time to be able to be pointed at.
Yeah, that's interesting.
know?
How that kind of creeped into our theology
Yeah.
of eschatology. That's
Right.
interesting.
If you just read it, though, it's really quite simple.
That's really interesting. That's really
so,
fascinating.
yeah.
And so,
So I think that's what's going on. I also think that as far as the prophetic scriptures, but we also have to look at how it affects the church. There is a Russian Orthodox church that Putin claims he is the defender of. So there is this other side where he's using religion to help bolster his justification in doing what he's doing. He's being the good guy. Now, someone else did that in 1939.
yeah, I was thinking about that.
Right,
Just
yeah,
now,
he
right.
did the same exact thing,
Yeah.
where he took the history of the Germanic people and the true religion, and he goes, that's why we're getting rid of the Jews.
Interesting.
That's why we're getting this pure race.
Right.
It wasn't pure just ethically or ethnically, but pure religiously.
Yeah.
And no one really talks about
Use Luther's
that
words
part
and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
using
yeah.
Luther and all of that. So we're seeing that in Putin to a degree, and he's going. Ukraine has too many. He's not saying this directly, but there's too many denominations. There's religious freedom in Ukraine. And he's going, I want to bring back the purity of the Russian Orthodoxy back to our people. And Russia goes, yeah. Think about it, right? We get a president that goes, I'm going to bring Christendom back to America single-handedly, right? The Christians would be like, I like this guy. But meanwhile, everyone else that has religious freedom, which is very important, by the way, to have religious freedom. Remember, man can never be a theocracy. He can't. Because he's going to have ulterior motives. It will be flawed. The only theocracy we'll ever have is when Jesus is the one sitting on the throne. And then his government across the earth, there will be no end, but it will be righteous and pure. Right. There will never be a righteous, pure theocracy on the earth
Not by man's
until
strength.
Jesus comes. Until he comes. So you could see the Russian people rallying behind Putin, going, yes, bring purity to the Orthodox Church again.
He looks like a religious hero.
He's a religious hero. He's a geopolitical hero.
Real pious,
Yeah, and meanwhile, Ukraine is crumbling, and there's a lot of different Christian denominations and Catholic, and there's Ukrainian Orthodox, there's Protestant, and there's also the largest Messianic congregation in the world is in Ukraine, 2,000 members, and they meet in Ukraine because there's a lot of Russian Jews.
Is that what it is?
So you got the Russian Jews that were in Russia because they got chased out of Germany. They became Russian Jewish, go into Ukraine. Why? So they can practice Messianic Judaism also, but Messianic Judaism especially. They can't do that in Russia. I mean, they could after the collapse of the Soviet Union, but there was always a persecution going on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of lines happening with this. And so, Gog and Magog. Does that mean we ignore this? No, not at all. We don't ignore what's going on, nor do we not look at it prophetically. There is still a realignment that's going on. Certain nations, certain leaders, certain experiences have to happen and be lined up. The conditions have to be right before the day of the Lord. So this is all part of that. Jesus called it birth pangs, and he's going, this is what's going to happen. Wars, rumors of wars. And we just go, we've had wars all our lives, so what does that mean? No, these are special wars and rumors of wars that help the alignment of the nation for the greatest amount of mercy to fall down upon the earth for the great harvest that happens before the coming of the Lord. It's not the alignment for evil, it's the alignment for good. It's not that, the whole thing is just going down and Jesus is just going to rescue us last minute. No, we got to look at it differently. Is it getting tough? Yeah, but what does persecution always bring? It always brings revival. Trouble, tribulation always brings revival. So the church shouldn't be looking at trouble and going, oh no, we're just got to kind of hold on, stay in our houses and Jesus, come. Jesus would go, get ready. Don't love your lives even unto death. Go be look, the fields are white to the harvest. Pray for laborers in the midst of tribulation. Wow. And that's the confidence. We need confidence in that. The reason why we don't do it is because we don't have confidence in it. Because we were never taught that. I was never taught that. Were you?
No, not at all.
No, I was always the opposite.
Yeah.
When the days leading up to the day of the Lord are the greatest days for the church. Hard, absolutely. When I say greatest days, I'm talking about the greatest days of evangelism, multiplication, the prophetic, the greatest days of prayer, of intercession, happen in the midst of persecution while people are being martyred.
Wow.
While there's death in Christianity.
What an amazing picture.
Yeah, that's what we got to go after.
I can't help but be reminded of Paul's words in Romans where he just describes it. If we were to look at the persecution and these wars and the increased violence and hostility against, believers and the Jewish people as a manifestation of sin, I'm reminded of Paul's word that where sin abound, grace abound all the more. Right. And that this outpouring of God's grace, of his mercy, his manifested power, through signs and wonders, and then it resulting in the greatest number of believers coming to faith in the midst of increased sin, grace abounding all the more, then it makes sense to marry, just increase end time trouble with increased end time revival.
Yeah.
Like it just goes together so perfectly.
Good.
When you see the marriage and the relationship between sin and grace, God just responds with increased grace.
Look at Paul's life himself.
Powerful.
The greatest persecutor
That's right.
of the church becomes the greatest grace giver for Jesus.
Absolutely.
Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that he wasn't kidding when he said that.
Wow.
He was probably thinking of his own heart.
Wow.
Where sin abounded in me.
Yeah.
Look at me now. Grace is much more abounded.
I'm the worst of you.
I'm the worst. And he would say, I'm the best Jew and the worst of sinners.
In a sense, Paul might, and I don't know that I've ever heard this before, but Paul might be a really nice prototype, a beautiful prototype of the end time. Martyrs who are going to come out, the believers who are going to believe, they're going to be the worst of the worst. Yeah. Who are going to have their eyes open and they're going to see the beauty of Jesus, understand his majesty and his love for us, and just have this just transformation. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it. Isn't that an uncanny thing to say? I'm looking forward to the trouble.
Looking forward to the trouble. I know, right?
If it allows us to see this measure of grace and outpouring of the Spirit, then you know what? It's going to be bad.
Well, didn't James say that, though? I glory in tribulation.
Yes,
I mean, what was he saying? He said, I'm looking for I'm looking for tribulation I can.
It makes sense in that
have
context.
The joy, our joy. I joy in tribulation.
Right.
The joy I have is in trouble. What? James, what are you, crazy? Hunker down. Hold on to the table.
Boy, you understand, it's purposeful. It's unto something.
Yeah.
See, that's what it is. It's unto something. Your book talks about that.
It does.
Your book talks about how the birth pangs, we were talking about the metaphors in that chapter, I think it was chapter 2. You're talking about the metaphors that the scriptures uses, and how the birth pangs, it's painful. It's I'm telling you, the women are watching. Like, you have no idea, Bernie.
Yeah.
But it's painful. But what it makes it enduring is that it's unto something.
Yeah.
There's going to be a birthing that's going to happen at the end of this. And
it's why Jesus used that metaphor specifically for the end times.
Yeah.
He uses marriage and he uses birthing.
Yeah.
So he uses the family. So then you go to Ephesians 5 and you go, husband, love your wives, because I'm doing something here. I'm making a prophetic picture, because when that picture, you're going to live the greatest moments of your life within that family unit will always be a prophetic picture of me in the end times.
Yes.
Which is why the devil's tried to pervert it.
Yeah.
Right? So Jesus uses that, but marriage, but then the birthing is, what happens when a married couple, they're newly married a year, and then every morning for 1 week, the woman is sick. All right, and we go at the first day, like, oh, I'm so sorry, honey, you're sick. Second day, oh, wow, maybe you got the bug. Fifth day, 7th day, and then the 9th day, she goes, I'm sick. She doesn't say that, but she took the test.
Right.
And she goes, I'm pregnant.
Right.
Now you're happy she was sick,
It was onto something.
right? Suddenly the sickness, because it's producing something,
Come on.
you're going, wow, you're sick. You're pregnant.
The sign of something.
It's a sign of something. And God was so, I was going to say the word clever. I don't know if that's the right word, but to use that analogy
Yeah.
or create birth process for the end times.
Yeah, that's good.
And not the other way around, you know. And, and then you go throughout the pregnancy. What are you doing the whole pregnancy, right? You start to go to the doctor. Why? To prepare for the labor.
Yeah, everything's onto that.
You don't go to the doctor to prepare for after the labor, right? You don't go to the doctor and
about
say,
that
well, all right,
day.
tell me how to raise the kid now. How do I feed him? No. We'll get to that. We'll get to how you're going to feed the baby.
It's all about that one day.
One
that one
day and one moment.
That one moment,
right?
yeah.
Where you'll go months of doctor visits. You'll get special vitamins. You'll get special supplements. You're going to begin to eat differently. And then you're going to grow. So a woman life experience is keeping her shape until
Except then.
she gets pregnant. Then it's all about a pregnancy shape.
Yeah.
I don't want my stomach to be bloated any time in my life except when I'm pregnant. And then I glory in this.
There's a beauty to that.
Right there, and there's a beauty, and people are going, "Wow, look at you, look so pure,
You're
beautiful.
glowing.
Look at, you're glowing, and look how cute. Everyone wants to touch,
Yes.
right? Everyone wants to let me touch the belly. What is that? It's your whole body is changing.
Yes.
You're actually injuring your skin, right? The stretch marks and all that. Right? There's a permanent scar
It is.
that happens, but you don't go, "Oh, I don't want it because I don't want the scars." You go, "Give me the scar. I'm pregnant. Something's happening." So everything is lined up. And then what happens? Well, then you're off balance. So now you feel off balance. You get up out of the chair and you're like, I can't get up really, right? So now what happens? Well, you need help.
Yeah.
So the husband's helping you,
He's the helper.
balancing you, running to the door, opening the door so you can get through it, helping you function in whatever you have to do, right?
so
In
good.
every
So many.
way you can. And that's what Jesus is doing for the church.
Yeah.
He's going, you're pregnant. You're off balance. I get it. You're sick sometimes. I understand that. But listen, you need these supplements. You need the scriptures that you've been getting, yes, but you
Holy
need them in an end
Spirit.
time focus.
Yeah.
You need them for the birth. You don't just randomly take supplements. You're going, I'm taking these vitamins and supplements for the labor.
Specifically configured for what you're about to go into.
For the
Yeah.
labor.
Wow.
Not even for the birthing, for the labor that produces the birth, right? All for that. And that analogy is probably the most perfect analogy we can have.
It really is.
Yeah. And we're just not, we like it, but we don't really think about it. We don't really think about it. And the book, I go into a lot of depth in trying to pull our gaze off of the birth and more into the labor. Why would you do that, Gary? The birthing is more exciting. I know, but the preparation, you can't have a birth without the labor. And you need the preparation for the labor to survive it,
Wow.
right? Even breathing. We learn how to breathe again. The wife, the woman, learns how to breathe during the labor. I mean, are you putting this together? Right? I mean, we don't think about breathing, and we'll go all our lives not thinking about breathing. We just breathe automatically.
Instinctually, right.
You can't breathe the same
Not the
way,
same way, right.
before the labor like you do in the labor, and you have to learn.
Yeah.
You have to be taught how to breathe. And that's what the book is a lot. And, the Lord is so good in releasing it now.
Yeah. Let's talk about
know?
the book.
Yeah, sure.
Let's shift conversations if we can.
Okay.
Talk about the book. First of all, for those of you who are just tuning in, or if you don't know what book we're talking about, Gary DePasquale authored his second book, and this book is entitled Beyond the Open Doors. And we are really excited about Beyond the Open Doors. There it is, subtitled The Unshuttable Doors at the End of the Age. We're really excited about this book, which will be released next Friday.
Next
or
Friday,
this
March
Friday
4th.
coming up, Friday, March 4th. We're going to have a book release, and we're going to talk about the book in more depth, and then we're going to have a book signing. So be sure to join us next Friday. It'll be an encounter service right here at IHOP Eastern Gate at 7 p.m.
Yes.
on March 4th. So join us for that. But his book that's been released, I just started reading it, by the way. He's such a good author. I'm really
you.
enjoying it and getting through it. And I was describing it earlier as like I can't wait to the next chapter. Like I finished the first chapter and I wanted to hear more, so jump right into the next chapter. And yeah, so in one of the chapters you're describing these metaphors that the Bible uses, specifically this metaphor of pregnancy, and it really is one. I mean, for anyone who has been watching for the past few minutes, us unpacking that a little bit. If you're a preacher, especially, your mind is lighting up with all these different illustrations and preachable moments, but. Why do you think the Lord specifically chooses this? What is it about? I mean, he uses the door, he uses the pregnancy. Why is it that you think the Lord uses these images in order to convey the messages of the end time to us in a way that we can more clearly understand? Why do you think he does that?
Definitely he takes the things that we have the most experience in and, uses them in a way that we can draw proper conclusions. Metaphors are not exact replicas. They're designed, metaphors are designed to give a picture of known activity in regards to what the Lord is conveying. Metaphors go all the way back to Genesis. The first metaphor was when God was speaking to Cain, where he said, Cain, why is your countenance low? And, don't you know that sin is crouching at the door and his desires for you? Now, right away, you hear that, you know what that looks like. You have the picture. Now, what is sin? I mean, what does it look like? And I didn't know it had legs, right? So obviously, God isn't saying sin is a creature and has legs.
Right.
He's going that sin is as something crouching.
Yeah.
So what is the image we get
ready
is
to
it's
pounce.
ready to pounce, and there's a door that's blocking it that I can either open or keep shut.
Yeah.
And it's desires for you. Perfect metaphor. We know exactly not only what he means, but the emotion behind it and the urgency of it.
Yeah. Wow.
That's all within one metaphor of a door. So metaphors are great, and God uses them constantly, and Jesus used them a whole lot. With talking about wars and rumors of wars, and the events that are happening. He goes, it's the fig tree. The fig tree dies and withers. He's going to see he does this miracle, and he uses the miracle as a metaphor for that which he just described in Matthew 24. So metaphor. Jesus is like the king of metaphors, and it's very effective. So I wanted to do a whole chapter just on that reality, and then I focus on the metaphors that I'm focusing on in the book. Now, the book is really a breakdown of Revelation chapter 3. Now, I've tried to not make it a study on Revelation 3, the Church of Philadelphia, but that's the launching pad for the metaphors that Jesus used and into the end of the age as a something that the end time church needs to pay attention to. We need to pay attention to all the churches of Revelation because they're all end time information for the church as a whole. Some people have taught that, each church is a specific time, an age of the church age, and I've looked at those, and I'm not against that, but that's not the primary reason for it, because then we wouldn't pay attention to anything that doesn't apply to us. It's just interesting, and there's nothing in the Bible that's just interesting.
Right.
We got to use it all. So it's that, okay, we'll go for that, but more importantly, it's a picture of the church at the end of the age as a whole. We'll all be dealing with each of those issues. We're all going to have commendations of each of those issues. But the Church of Philadelphia, what's interesting about them is that they only have commendation. There is no correction. And they are a persecuted church. And within it, it speaks about perseverance in the time of the great testing. All right, so it's specific to the church in a certain time. So the book kind of starts in that arena and then talks about why Jesus uses the certain metaphors to that church of Philadelphia, and then how it applies to us and what we should be rallying around as an end time church, not rallying around hiding out, getting guns and figuring out how we're going to survive. That's a defeatist attitude, and it's not in the scripture. It's always victorious. It's a victorious church. We just don't know what victorious looks like. We think victorious looks like a lot of money in the bank account, nice house, good nest egg, kids are all good, and I got peace. That happens after the birth. We're going, teach us how to feed our child. And Jesus is going, let's prepare for the labor.
Yes.
Right? So that I'm hoping that it comes across that way, that's the design of the book.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And speaking of that point you made previously is one we need to unpack more. I think it's really important. Now, in your book, and I'm going to ask you a question I know the answer to, but they don't know the answer yet.
Okay.
So in your book, you describe how, even in contemporary uses of the word door as a metaphor, like things that people do behind closed door evokes this idea of they're up to something sneaky or
Right.
mischievous, right? When people read your title, the title of your book, Beyond the Open Door, what are you hoping is the emotion that it evokes in their hearts when they read the book, or even before they had a chance to read it? So they're seeing the name Beyond the Open Door. What is it you're hoping that emotion, what emotion will be evoked in their hearts as they read that
Yeah.
book?
I'm praying, and I even put a prayer in the book itself, that the readers, I invite them to pray it out loud. At the end of the book, to be able to shut it and go, I've just received confidence. I want the church, anyone that would read it, to at the end of it have an emotion of confidence that it's not about what's happening to me is the end result of who I am. That what's happening to me, and I'm talking about the church at large, but me as the believer, is unto something greater, that unless I go through it, the greater doesn't happen.
Come on.
Right?
Wow.
So that's kind of the emotion that I'm hoping, and I think will. I mean, I try to repeat that over and over again. At the same time, I've tried to make it interesting in it also. I know one chapter, I think it's chapter 5, where I'm actually identifying a key figure in the end times. And I won't go any more than I'm not saying it. And it will have people going, I'm not sure if I agree with that. That's okay, because I say that in the chapter itself.
Okay.
But the point is not to identify a villain, but to actually identify a revival.
Come on.
And that with something that we thought was all about the villain in this one verse in the Church of Philadelphia is actually a promise of revival that's going to happen upon the earth during the Great Tribulation. So that's what I want this book to actually be able to produce: confidence, excitement, expectation, victorious church, a people that would not love their lives even unto death.
That's good.
And what does that mean? Not that you want to be a martyr. That's not the end result, but that you have such a trust in the promises of Jesus, because he said in Revelation, which is the unshuttable door, and I made that word up, but I used it anyway.
Good,
Unshuttable.
it's understandable.
Jesus said to the Church of Philadelphia, I'm going to hold open a door that no one can shut. And I'm going to close the doors that no one can open. Now we look at that, and it's part of the introduction that he gives himself to the Church of Philadelphia specifically. And we just go, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, he's strong. And then I've heard some teachings on it. Opportunity. God, Jesus is holding open doors of opportunity. We always go there, right? When he's really talking about a ministry function of the church during the time of persecution that will not be shut. No one can shut it. Antichrist, false prophet, money, persecution cannot shut the doors. They're unshuttable. He holds them open. They can't be shut. Throughout the time of crisis, we need to know what those doors are, because we should be working in them now. It's not like when that day comes, you'll figure it out. No, if you're not prepared, we'll be falling for everything. We'll be trying to do this and that and listening to every voice that's out there that gives us a degree of comfort. Right? That's not what it's about. It's about what doors is Jesus holding open and the ones that we should be functioning in right now, today.
That's so good. You know, one of the things I'm really beginning to appreciate more and more as I'm reading through your book is that although you certainly can go there if you wanted to because you're really well versed in end time topics. It could have been a really profound exegesis of the book of Revelations, but it isn't. The way you start the book is you're not assuming that the person who's reading has this profound understanding of the end times. And you're just kind of walking us through these little important pictures and parallels to what you're going to eventually unpack later on. And I think that's important for people to hear this. This is not a book that I think is like a commentary on the book of Revelations. And you say that yourself. It's these four doors that you're going to describe are going to really give us hope and give us clarity as to our operations in the end times at the end of end of the age approaches. But I think that one of the things I really appreciated was anyone at any level of understanding, eschatologically speaking, at any level could kind of read this book and just come out encouraged, come out inspired, come out confident. The Lord's purposes are perfect, and that we have that our part in it is strengthened by His grace.
Amen.
And I really, really appreciate the way you're kind of approaching the book. Just from the onset, you didn't go in deep into unpacking the symbologies.
Yeah.
But rather you're kind of taking the approach. It seems like of just kind of unpacking some simple ideas that are going to help us understand the bigger idea of the book. I'm really excited about this.
Thank you. That was my goal as far as that's concerned. I'm glad that you said that. I mean, I've been posting some of the endorsements from some key leaders that I respect that I sent it out to also, and then I just asked them to write something up for me to put in the book, and I just love that every one of them got what I was trying to say. Without me really describing it, they kind of got what I was saying by reading whatever. Some read the whole thing, some read a couple chapters and skim it and whatever. But they got the idea that it's about confidence in tribulation. It's about victory in trouble. It's about having the knowledge. What is Daniel, remind me of Daniel 11, 33, 34, that the people of knowledge will perform great exploits. People that know their God will perform great exploits. People of knowledge. So this is what I'm hoping, and what I hope inspires others. It's not just about reading the book, but forming your own research around the reality of that confidence. So I'm hoping people get the confidence, but then find out for themselves. Don't just regurgitate what I've come up with. Go through the scriptures. I think I've laid them out in the book easy enough where you can follow along. I've tried to put as many footnotes as I can that refer to every scripture that I'm referring to, so that I'm not just giving an opinion. You can actually stop, follow a footnote to the bottom of the page, and read the scripture that I'm referring to in it. And, have a Bible next to you and open it up and read the context. And go, I'm not sure, or I didn't think of that context. And I want both of those. Both of those are great, So anyway, that's what we're going for.
And what I'm suspecting that happened to me, that happened in a conversation that I had with one of the staff people. I don't know if I'm not going to assume everyone knows this, but you did unpack for us to a certain extent. I mean, I think here is much more developed and more, explained out. But in a series of teachings that you brought to Maranatha Church, the Sunday community here at Eastern Gate, and you unpacked, this kind of the principles of the book. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting in my conversation with a staff person was what I thought really spoke to me and gave me encouragement and hope was different for someone else, right? Depending on the open doors. And I mean, we appreciate them and embrace them all, right? These are all part of our legacy and identity that the Lord has provided for us as a church at the end of the age. However, I think it's going to speak to different people in different ways. Yeah. Depending on, maybe that leg that you're limping on is not the same as your leg that you're limping on. But it's going to speak to us and give us encouragement so that no matter what may come, we will have confidence of the Lord's leadership and the grace that will be provided for us as we go through it. So I'm really excited about this book, Gary.
It's really, Joel Richardson speaks about that. We've spoken about it, actually, him and I, that, it's about laying it all out, laying out all the research, but understanding that the conclusion that different people will get different conclusions, still based in the summary of the entirety. So that's not a bad thing. If someone comes to a different conclusion, that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing,
great.
because you're evoking thoughts and research and love for Jesus and pursuit of who he is. And I appreciated that when I was starting it for Joel to give me. Actually, he did the forward in the book, which I love that he did that and appreciated his words.
And I just want to highlight, I mean, the people, you call them key figures or key leaders. More than that, these are authority figures on some of these topics that you wrote about. And I thought it was such a great affirmation to the book itself, and a credit to the book and to yourself, of course, that, that they could read this book and, see the integrity of the message and with all their scholarly, research and academia and titles, that they could see this as something that was valuable and necessary and still adding to the table of what's already available. I think that's a great testament to the book. So guys,
Amen.
You got to get this book.
Yeah.
Let's talk about next week.
Next week.
You get it next week. It's going to be available now. It's going to be available on Amazon, and it already
Yeah.
is available actually on Amazon. However, we want to invite you, before you go out and get it on Amazon, that you come to IHOP EG and pick up your book and walk out with the book. I mean, it's going to be cheaper
Yeah,
if
it'll
you
be a
get
little
it here.
cheaper.
So it's
Yep.
a little bit cheaper if you come and get it at IHOP EG. And even after March 4th, it'll continue to be available, hard copies here on site. However, we want to invite you to come on March 4th, because on March 4th,
It's a special day.
it's a special day. It's
Yeah.
12 years, Gary.
Yeah.
12 years.
12 years.
The fire has been burning in this house day and night. I mean, think about that. 12 years. What does that sound like to you? What does that evoke?
I don't even know. 12 years went fast,
Yeah.
real fast. 2 years went real fast through the midst of all this craziness. It's been 2 years already
been a
since our
while, too.
10-year anniversary. And, it's really special that on the Friday night is March 4th, which is the actual day that we opened the doors. March 4th, 2010 was a Thursday. And we started at 6 p.m., where we lit the fire, and we've started the fire burning of intercession and prayer on March 4th, 6 p.m., Thursday, March 4th, 2010, 6 p.m.
Nice.
And I led that set. I'll never forget it. I led that
Wish I
2-hour
was there.
per set, and it was very exciting. And for us to be able to go 12 years later now, we're going to land on that day and be able to not only celebrate, but with great humility, understand that this is something the Lord wants in our region. That it's not manufactured by man's zeal. It's not. This has been so much fun for 12 years. It's probably the hardest thing that any person could ever do, is maintain this for 12 years. Year one, very exciting. Year two, maybe the first 3 or 4 years, you had a lot of momentum. But momentum will never keep a ministry, and it won't keep it going. And that we've been now 12 years, and probably through the hardest 2 years that any ministry can go through, and we're able to land and go. But for the Lord, we're still here. We're still going, and we do it unto Him.
Amen.
So that makes it a lot easier. So next week's gonna be a special day. You got to be here.
It's our bar mitzvah, right?
Oh,
It's
very
our 12 year-
good. Hey, I like that. All right, it's a bar mitzvah.
It's our bar mitzvah next week, so you don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
Join us next Friday night at 7 p.m. We're going to have a conversation about the book. We're going to worship the Lord and celebrate His goodness and His kindness. There's going to be a time then of going out into the cafe, and we're going to, in the cafe, have a great time of fellowship with one another.
Free
and
food,
Food
cake.
is available, and refreshments.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have a table set up for you so you
Yeah.
can sign. I mean, I hope you're going to relax at hand.
Yeah,
right?
we'll have a
Because
book
you'll be
signing.
You'll be signing away books by the hundreds on that day, and we're just really excited for everyone to get a copy of this book. It's a great book for yourself. It's a great book to gift to someone else who's a believer and needs to be encouraged, because we are going through difficult times. These times are testing us and preparing us for the real day of trouble.
Yeah.
And being aware of these doors are going to be so essential towards, even now, you can begin to see the Lord's favor and grace for these 4 doors in our lives now.
Amen.
Let alone for when the real trouble comes.
Right,
So,
and we need it now.
Yeah,
we need to
we
be
definitely
operating
do.
them now. It's being translated into Spanish.
yes, qué
Yeah,
bueno. Eso va a ser
yeah,
excelente.
sí.
Más allá de la puerta abierta. I think
We,
that's
we
the
should
word.
we should have a bite. What is it?
Más allá is beyond de la puerta abierta of the open door.
Wow, I have
Yeah,
to learn
sounds
that.
great.
Okay, I'm not going to attempt it now.
It's not easy.
But we should have that ready by April.
Awesome.
And the Audible book should be out around the same time. We should be doing that in
Fantastic.
the next couple of weeks. weeks.
I'm definitely gonna get my Audible for
get
sure.
your Audible, yes.
So guys, it's
yeah, we're
it's
excited.
coming out in different formats. You don't want to miss next Friday night again.
next Friday.
I think that's pretty
so
much
we'll
it.
be
Oh.
doing this
Yes.
live.
That's right.
But in the prayer room.
In the prayer room
That's
next
what we're going to
Friday.
do it, but at 7.
It will be at 7 p.m. That's
Yeah.
correct, 7 p.m.
Yeah.
So you don't want to miss it next Friday at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And we got lots of hearts and thumbs up
Oh, great.
coming from those who are
Great.
watching online. Thank you guys for watching us. It's been a great time, sharing and talking about the things we've been talking
Yeah.
about.
Let's remember Ukraine. Let's
Yeah.
pray for the church in Ukraine,
Yeah.
also specifically. And, just be watchmen. Keep your
Yeah,
eyes
that's
open
good.
on all that's going on.
That's good.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll say goodbye. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys on Sunday or next week.
Amen. God bless. Let's watch this. We had a promo, JP? All right, let's watch this promo. Gary DePasquale here with Bernie Felix, and we are so excited to tell you about this coming March 4th. It's the 12th anniversary of the International House of Prayer Eastern Gates Night and Day Prayer Room. Can you believe it, Bernie?
Yeah, it's been 12 years.
12 years.
And that's amazing. It's been 12 years of focused intercession for the Metro New York region. It's been 12 years of encouraging people with the prophetic ministry and praying for the sick. It's also been 12 years of declaring the soon return of Jesus.
12 years of praying for Israel. 12 years of praying for the harvest. Praying for revival to break out in your church. Bernie, we're talking about over 87,000 hours of prayer and worship. Not for our purposes, but for the purposes of God to be realized across the region.
Listen, we are going to be commemorating this miracle of the Lord by gathering together as a region. 12 years to the very day that the very first prayer meeting was launched from this prayer room. And that's all going to happen on Friday night, March 4th at 7 p.m. Please take this personal invitation to join us at IHOP Eastern Gate, located in Cranford, New Jersey.
It's not just the 12-year anniversary, but also we're going to have our worship team ministering. We're going to have different pastors and leaders joining us. And I'm so excited to be releasing my second book entitled Beyond the Open Door, which is a look into the scriptural promises of the operation of the church in the last days.
Yes, and we will be including the launch of this highly anticipated book as part of our anniversary gathering. And Gary, you'll be there signing copies of that book if you desire.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting night all around. And that's Friday night, March 4th. So mark your calendars and come join us. We'll see you there.